Hey everybody, it's been a long time. It's been several months. It's the, gee Dave, what did you do last summer experience or episode? And there's no real easy way to go about it. Most of it was fine until I nearly dropped dead and died. Up until then, though. So, what did last summer turn into? It turned into spending a lot of time with actually, it was pretty good. Uh, at least to start out. Yeah, it was really good. I spent a lot of time with my teenage son, 19, just finished his first year at Syracuse. And so there was a lot of time with him right from early May when he got out of school. We went and saw a lot of things and did a lot of things. And it was great, frankly. So that probably was the best possible use of my time, right? I spent time with my guy. So that happened. So I wasn't here. And then there was some family vacay. And family vacay this year turned out to be Scotland, someplace I'd never been and not necessarily had a tremendous interest in. I just didn't. There are a lot of places I'd want to go, but there was a lot of hemming and hawing about where to go, and really last second, because I think I knew my wife liked or had a hankering. I said, "You want to go to Scotland?" Because it's, you fly into Edinburgh and you rent a car and you drive in the Highlands, and right. And she's a huge fan of TV programming that's shot there. She became an Outlander fanatic and watched all of that. It's all fine. It's her escape. Let's hear it for escapism. She has a very heavy gig, and when she's not on the heavy gig, she wants escape. And so she got into all that. And so I was like, wait a minute, we could go to some of the filming locations. And so we went to Scotland. And I must say, I loved Edinburgh. I liked it a lot. And then, the Highlands were better than I thought. And Loch Ness was fantastic. And there were a lot of castles. I mean, it was... and eventually it was the Isle of Skye, Glencoe, and then back. It was a great trip. Saw some incredible stuff. And good for everybody's head. Fantastic. Summer moved on. And then there was another trip. And I thought I would be here telling you about these things, perhaps. But my wife has got to go on business. She's got a position in which she has people working for her, some in South Africa, some in the Middle East, some in Brussels, some in London, and some in Singapore. And so every now and then, she needs to go to these places, face to face, see the people, get to know them. It's a lot better than just, doing what we're doing, talking via video or something. So she gets out there every now and then. There are meetings set up. She can help close some deals, whatever. So one of the trips she always has to make is Singapore. And it's the longest flight nonstop, I understand, in the world. Or if it's not, it's darn close, from New York to Singapore, because it's the antipodes. It's the exact opposite side of it's not the exact opposite side of the earth, because if it was, you'd be off the coast of Western Australia, somewhere in the Indian Ocean. But from an east-west perspective, it's pretty much dead on. It's the other side of the earth. My son had always watched her do these trips, and she had always said, "One day I'll take you on one of the trips." But it's hard to do with a kid when she's on business, and right, it never really happened. And then she finally said, okay, before, I've got to get you on one of these trips. And the one place she had always said, "Where do you want to go?" And my guy had always said, Singapore, right? Naturally, especially as an 8-10-year-old, right? Whatever, because it was the craziest trip you could make. And he'd looked into Singapore and all the things you could do in Singapore. So she was like, guess what? This year, Singapore. You guys want to go? And we were like, yeah. I mean, why would you say no, right? So she managed to get us on the flight. She was in business class. We were going to be in the back of the plane because it was the only thing that was available, which was fun. And we were like, okay, let's, we'll hunker down. Part of the, for a guy who's 19, right? Person that age, part of the fun is just making the trip by itself, right? There's the challenge aspect of, can I do 18 hours in a plane? So, and it was only going to be like 3 or 4 days. It's not, and there is no stranger time adjustment. If you wear a watch, you don't have to change it. You just, because it's 12 hours, so you lose a day going over. It's complicated. Anyway, we did the flight. We didn't know if we were going to go. The flight's interesting because it could go over the pole. It can go east, it could go west. It doesn't change anything. I think it depends on the weather. They went east. We went back across the Atlantic and across Europe and down over the Black Sea, and that's a little interesting. And then you're down north of Iran and through whatever, maybe parts of China, I don't know, Southeast Asia certainly, and then eventually you're in Singapore. We left on a night, it was a Sunday night. 18 hours plus the 12 hours means you actually arrive on Tuesday in Singapore at like 5 a.m. Great. Get to a hotel and go to sleep. Get up and try to have some time in Singapore. Now, Singapore is 80, 85 miles north of the equator. So there's a kind of heat there that's kind of different. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When it was time to get off the plane, I had an enormous, like a cramp almost behind my left knee. Like I was having trouble walking. I was like, what is wrong with me? Was I sitting too long? Was I, like, what? I don't know. And it took some days to go away. Fine. So just put that memory hole, that part. And Singapore, by the way, is fantastic. Everyone should, it's a very interesting place. I learned a lot about, we could talk for, we could go on and on about Singapore and the multicultural nature of it. It is a city-state. It's like really, I think there are probably very few places anywhere quite like it, where it's filled with, at this point, generations, I suppose, of expats, but it's, although I think it's 75%, maybe it's a little higher, of Chinese expats. Saying it's Chinese would be like saying Quebec City is French or San Juan, Puerto Rico is Spanish, right? It's not. It's, so much time has gone by where it's become so many other things with influx of so many other people that really has become its own thing with its own identity. It's that connection to maybe the people who were there earlier. It's just not, it's just, it's become its own thing. So there's a lot of depth there. I think most people probably would realize that there's a lot more going on and that, you can't sort of make sort of this judgment. And I don't think I did, but, just to put that sort of, you're going to go into something deep. You just don't know what that deep thing is going to be. And so I was curious, if you go to Quebec City, right, you would notice the French influence, of course, right? While recognizing, okay, this isn't anything like France. It's an influence. It's not, right? So I think I went in with all that, but I found the fact that all of these different cultures had now gone there. There's a big Indian population, there are Tamils, there are all sorts of different folks. The degree to which they seem to all get along really well, and that they've made something work for themselves there. Politically, I know it's a little, is that really even a democracy? I'm not sure it is. It's, but it seems there are cultural differences, but the food is fantastic. There's a lot to get into. We saw a lot of stuff. We tried to really deep dive. My son had a list. We hit the list, plus some things. I said, have you seen that? Have you checked that out? So we saw some very interesting stuff. We ate some really wild food. It was a great trip. My wife did her business trip. We got to see her in the evenings. We, tell her about our day, and she would tell us about her day, and we would go find some chow. Okay, so on the way back, on the 18-hour flight, I had another problem behind my other knee. I had these cramps behind my knee, and it was really weird. And then I noticed in the weeks following the trip that I was more tired than I need to be. I had a cough. It made no sense. Where was this cough coming from? I didn't have a bug, but I had a cough. I was finding a little bit of shortness of breath if I was just climbing a set of stairs. It wouldn't make any sense. There's nothing wrong with me. I'd seen doctors earlier in July, and they gave me a pretty much clean bill of health. So it didn't make any sense to me. I was trying to figure it out. I'm having some work done on the house. I was talking to my contractor about it, and he was like, yeah, I don't know, and I'm like, I don't know either, he's a friend. I'm like, maybe there's a COVID variant going around. I took a COVID test, no COVID. What is this? I don't know, weird. Anyway, I was working down here. I think this was August 9th, and realized it was becoming a hot day, and I'm not sure the AC is on in the house. Now, I'm in a basement, but it's a 3-level house. So although this is a basement, you could see, we're on a hill, so you could see outdoors. Okay, it's only kind of a basement. It's a lot of it is ground level, but if you go to the level ahead of me on the other side of the house, because it's on a hill, that's the ground level. Okay, so I'm technically, I suppose, the basement, and then there's a ground level above me, and then above that are bedrooms and so forth. So there's AC for the main level, and there's AC on the top level that takes care of both up there and down here to a degree. So we're like, there are different zones. So I'm like, I didn't turn on the AC. I'm gonna go turn on the AC. So I'll go zipping up the stairs, and I turn on the AC, and then I go up the next set of stairs to turn up the AC in my top floor. And suddenly I am dizzy, and I can't breathe, can't seem to get enough air, and I have to sit down. And then it's worse. It's almost like I have to lie down, and I think I'm gonna black out, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I start getting nervous. Someone close to me passed away last January around my age due to a stroke. It couldn't help but come into my head. And I said, don't pass out, don't pass out, don't pass out. And I'm suddenly sweating incredibly, like I ran 5 miles. Really weird. But I seem to get past it enough. I turn on my AC, and I'm starting to think, what the hell was that? And as I was going through it, I'm sitting there going, okay, this isn't something you can just dismiss and say, no big deal. Because if that comes back the next time, I don't know. And I think that's the weirdest, scariest part of this is the I don't know. When I think most of us, I wouldn't say I was an athlete, but good Lord, I ran the marathon many years ago. I used to run a lot, and, I was always physically active. I think you get in touch to some degree with your body, and you know how your body reacts. When your body does something where it doesn't make any sense anymore, it's like you lose the baloney detector, you lose the barometer. What is bad? What isn't bad? That didn't feel that bad. I wasn't in pain. It was nothing there. I suddenly just what is it with the breathing thing? So I came back down here. And as I was hitting here, I was saying to myself, you know what? You may be waiting too long right now. You probably should get a hold of somebody. So I tried to get a hold of my wife, and she was getting her nails done. Because she was getting her nails done, she was like, really wasn't able to get to the phone. So, but I kept getting a hold of her. And finally, she had this moment where she sits there and go, okay, someone's trying to get a hold of me. And she saw it was me. And she saw that it had been me. And she was like, oh, he doesn't do this. Right? She knows me well enough, right? She's like, okay, something's not right. So she did get a hold of me. And I told her what happened. She's like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, this isn't urgent care because I don't trust those guys. Frankly, I don't. I mean, I think it's emergency room time, unfortunately. I need to do that. She's like, okay, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, because my son is a teenager and is a college kid. He was sleeping very late into the day. Great. But I said, I'm going to wake up the guy, and I'm trying not to freak him out, but tell him I need a ride. Because, I could drive there, but what if I had what if something happens on the way? I don't know what the hell's going on. So I woke up my son, and I said, yo, dude, I won't trip you out, but this happened. I think I need to go in. And we just stay on business. Let's go. He's like, yep, no problem. Boom, boom, ready to go. Put on some clothes, brush his teeth. Let's get in the car, Dad. Great. So we go. And my guy was, he reacted. I can't, pretty much perfectly. He was, which is good to know. In a crisis, he's calm. I wasn't freaking out. I'd like to think that in a crisis, I think the most important thing you can do in a crisis is be calm. So I have an unusual growing up experience. My mom was a geriatric nurse, and my mom and dad owned a nursing home as a kid. I grew up in Maine, and they had this little nursing home in Maine. Both of my grandmothers were patients at various times. But I grew up as a kid next to a nursing home where, no one's going home. I mean, you get to know all these people and they all die. What it tends to do, I think, and there are emergencies, is you recognize, I ended up having a great appreciation for nurses who had seen it all, and the bigger the crisis got, the more focused they got. None of them freaked out, or they wouldn't, or couldn't keep the job. They were all incredibly focused people. And when the moment came and things were bad, they were spot on. That's it. I guess that was my abject lesson in crisis management. So it's something I've always tried to do. And I think at this point, probably, no, there are things that freak me out. Don't get me wrong. Everyone has some breaking point or some, right? But I'd like to think that I'm hopefully aware enough to know that when things are bad, you don't have time to be tripping. All that does is make the problem worse. You've got to think through every step of the way, right? I remember reading The Right Stuff, right? The great Tom Wolfe book about the reason why test pilots were test pilots is because in the middle of some terrible spin with some experimental airplane, they kept clicking the next button and sticking to routine, because the quickest way to get out of the spin was to do what you're supposed to do. Try A, and then we're going to try B, and then we're going to, right to the point where even where they didn't make it, they were still going through their checks and their procedures, because it was the fastest way to get them out. And there were some problems you couldn't get out of, right? Okay. So I run to the emergency room. My wife met me there. And more kudos, because in this case, it's the emergency room doc who listened to my story and was checking me out, and blood pressure was elevated and I wasn't getting enough air. So they were like, okay, we're going to get you some oxygen, some things like that. And they did blood work very quickly and said, something here I'm not crazy about. So I want to do a sonogram of your chest, because they're thinking heart attack or stroke or something like that, I think. And they do this scan, and then they come back, and the next time I see her, which isn't long at all, she's with another doctor I don't know who that doctor is. I will come to learn. And that other doctor says, um, you know, I guess I should tell you the expectation for me going in was I would go in, they would give me something to stabilize all this. They'd do a couple tests, and they'd send me home. You're going to be on this medication for a couple days. And then they would set me up with some kind of heart person, I was thinking. And then after doing this test, and now I'm with the emergency room doctor and now this new doctor, and the new doctor says, okay, well, you're going to get admitted, and and I'm like, oh. I'm like, is this really necessary? I mean, spending a night, for observation. I mean, and she's like, oh, no, 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 no. She goes, you're not spending a night here. You're spending 4 or 5 nights here. And then she let me know that she was in charge of the ICU and that I was going into the ICU. And I said, why? And she explained that what happened is that I'd had what's called a pulmonary embolism, which means it's possible that the things I felt in my knees after Singapore and then on return from Singapore were blood clots, and that those had moved up and were now all over my lungs and around my heart. And she's like, she couldn't have been more sober and clear. She goes, this stuff will kill you. And she goes, I'm getting you on medication immediately. And just to show you how mundane, right, these things are, I'm like, yeah, I gotta pee. Can I go pee? And she's like, no, you can't get up. I said, it wasn't that bad. She's like, it may not have felt that bad. It's that bad. She goes, I'm not waiting to give you the medication up in the ICU. I'm going to give it to you here because we're dealing with minutes at this point. There's time pressure here. We need to get you set now. Then we're going to get you upstairs. And there's the moment where I'm like, oh, the gravity of the situation hit me. I didn't freak out. But I was like, oh, this is much worse than I thought. Okay. And I said, fine, of course, whatever you need. Tell me what to do. I'll do whatever you want. So they get me to ICU and hooked me up to every tube known to man and immediately put me on some very heavy blood thinners and monitored me. And the blood pressure started to come down, and I started to get some explanations because I wanted to know, right? There wasn't time to freak out. There was only time to understand, try to get a handle on it. Okay, now it's obviously I'm in a very serious situation. What is going on? What have I been experiencing? And it turns out the shortness of breath was these blood clots in my lungs will tend to decrease lung capacity. And the fact that they were around my heart and all that was affecting my ability, no endurance, tired, all that. It all now was all dovetailing and all making sense. So I kept asking questions, and as they came along, they kept testing, doing more testing, all sorts of tests. And one of the things they told me was that my heart was basically very strong. I thought there'd be heart damage as well, and there wasn't heart damage as well. They said your heart probably pulled you through and all this. And gradually everything sort of went away. The coughing was still there, but they said that's because this is a result of these blood clots around your lungs. Your lungs are working harder. Everything's working harder. So I mean, obviously I learned a lot. And after some days, it was, okay, you can go home. They got me up and finally got me walking around, which was okay. I wasn't great at it at first because you're in days and days and days. I think I was there 4 days. Nurses were fantastic. Everyone was fantastic. No complaints about my local hospital whatsoever. Doctors, anybody. Eventually got out of there. And there was all sorts of fun getting me on the right medication, obtaining the right medication. That was a bit of a nightmare. That part wasn't fun. There have been a few times when symptoms have returned and I've had to go back to the emergency room, but it's worked out. And then they got me to a pulmonologist, and I'm going to also be dealing with a hematologist, because there's one of the upshots of this is the natural question, right, when you're getting released from all this is, okay, I imagine there are going to be major lifestyle changes now, right? What's going to be different? And same ICU doctor looked at me and said, nothing. I said, nothing? She goes, truth is, you don't smoke, you don't drink. I mean, you drink, but you don't, I don't drink all that much. You're not doing anything wrong. And you haven't been doing anything wrong. You've been losing some weight. You're in fairly good shape. I mean, you didn't do anything to make this happen. So I said, was it the plane flight? She goes, might have been the plane flight. She goes, next time, I said, I can't fly anymore? She goes, no, you could fly, but you're going to take some aspirin before you fly, and then you're going to walk around the plane every couple hours so that these blood clots don't develop. There's things that we can do to if that's what you're experiencing, if that's what you've got this tendency to blood clots, which maybe you have. That's why we're going to go see a hematologist. Okay. So I then got to meet a pulmonologist who is a very centered, he looks a little bit like Isaac Asimov in the 1970s and sounds like Henry Kissinger from the same time. Dave, you're going to be fine. I'm going to take care of everything. Yes, we see some little things here and there, but I will take care of all things. And you will be okay. So you can't help. For some reason, he resonates with me, and I like this guy, and the seriousness and the deadpan. No, Dave, no. Well, I will take care of everything. I will take it, So, okay. So I've got a guy. I've got a couple. I've got a nice new primary doctor as well. I've got all sorts of things. Now I'm going to go see a hematologist. We're going to figure out more stuff. So I'm on blood thinners like crazy, and I've not missed any of my blood thinner medication. I better not. So that's fine. I'm probably going to be on that for about 5 or 6 months. The coughing has gone away. And most of the PE, I've had little moments where I got shortness of breath again. I had little moments where where the energy's been down. And it's a little disconcerting, but nothing bad enough to warrant having to go back. I have been able to do some light exercise, and I could feel in the weeks after this, definitely feeling stronger and feeling better and feeling almost entirely like myself. But then there'd be a day or so where something wouldn't be right, and I'd feel something in the chest, and I gotta tell you, and there's a couple aspects of this that really will spook you. One is, it's hard to describe the sensation because it's not like anything else I've felt before. And I thought, if you're gonna buy it, then I would expect there would be this dramatic moment. Death, right? I expected, right? I expected something big. And this was extremely mundane. I nearly died turning on the air conditioner. Right? So what does that do to your head? That's a whole other question. And how you psychologically respond. And as I was going through it, I'm sitting there going, okay, how are you taking this in? How are you responding to this? Don't tell yourself stories. Be straight with yourself. Make sure that you're doing that. We live in a time where all people do is tell themselves stories, tell themselves fictions, and then believe the fiction. So people being able to be true to themselves, be honest with themselves, I'm not sure we're very good at that right now. I'd like to think, compared to the culture, I'm doing fine in that regard. But what's weird is, what can be very disconcerting is, I have no barometer really for what a problem even is. I suppose if I got close to that day, feeling that lack of energy and feeling that, feeling the, if the cough, if all that came back, yes, then I'd recognize it, I suppose. But it was so light to be such a heavy thing. Um, on some level, does it make you a little gun shy about a few things? Yeah. Yeah. I haven't sit there and go, okay, I'm now going to be Bubble Boy. Um, I think one of the reactions is because it was, the near death experience was a totally mundane thing, is to take all of this probably a little less seriously and to think that people probably take it and themselves way too seriously. I don't think people can imagine a world in which they're not in it. The world will go on just fine. So I had, you had to reckon with the possibility of your own demise. And I was sitting there saying to myself, okay, this is it. Yes, I might feel a little cheated that some things didn't go perhaps the way I wanted it to, or I didn't get to have, the whole old age thing, which I think is probably overrated. But I would have liked to have at least had it and then not. But if this is it, then this is it. And I did my damnedest. I did my best. I did what I could. That I could, I could at least feel like all right, overall, I did the best I could. I did what I could. And this is it, and this is it. And, I know how dark and weird all this gets, but I mean, how do you can't help but these things can't, they should cross your mind. I think you should be thinking about it. So I sort of got through that, I think. I don't think it's freaked me out too much. But that's what I did this summer. Okay? So I had a nice trip. I had another nice trip. I had a lot of good times with my kid. And then, this happened. Long term, I mean, the idea is there's going to be a full recovery here. I hope so. They've said that, every 6 weeks post the event, things will get a little less. You'll get slowly out of the danger zone. I mean, even as I speak, technically I'm not out of the danger zone. They said the first 6 weeks after is when something can happen. I'm still within those 6 weeks. But I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not overdoing it. I'm not underdoing it. I'm taking all the medication. I've seen all the doctors. I'm doing everything I've been told. Following all the guidelines. So, yeah, there have been a few moments where there have been hiccups that you go, okay, you can't help it, but, think like that. In the moment, it wasn't as terrible. The trauma afterwards, right? Really a mental sort of, you're a little gun shy. You're a little, like, oh God, I don't need this. So I think I'm doing everything right. But I'm look, behind me, there are parts being written, right? I mean, no one said I can't play the horn. So I'm playing the horn because that it doesn't cause problems. If it did, I'd be able to feel it and I'd stop playing. I mean, so I'm feeling fine. I'm able to do everything, I have done a little, like I say, some exercise. I'm able to do some things around the house. I'm okay. So I'll be, as we go on, and I keep taking the medication. I've already lost the cough, and I've been told that there was another scan that the blood clots had shrunk considerably. So that's good. I would think I'm going all in the right direction. But it's an interesting thing. I'm looking forward to making it like history and keeping it there. Obviously, I don't want a repeat of any of this, but that's how I spent my summer, and that's why you haven't seen me. One other thing before we split here is, I have no sage advice about any of this, but one of the things that's happened, maybe as a result of this, maybe not, is an increasing disenchantment with social media. That doesn't necessarily mean YouTube. It somewhat means YouTube. But it's a nuanced thing. It's a little bit of a subtle thing. I'll talk about it more, I think, in a future episode, which hopefully will be soon. I won't be But it's crossing my mind that, and I don't think I'm the first one at the party for this. I think it's a thing that's just starting to dawn on people, is that what social media was, say, 15 years ago or so, right? When it was a way to connect to friends or meet some new people, and there was novelty to all that. What it's turned into is now just ads and clickbait and someone selling you a course, and we're realizing that a diet of it is no good. And we see that in grades for school kids and things like that. COVID obviously took a hit on all that for that generation too. My son's generation, I saw it in that generation. But we've also come to recognize that the people in tech they're not any friend of the culture. They're not gonna say things are getting out of, they only care about getting your attention and selling ads and making money. They don't care what's right for, they're not doing anything that's right for people. They could care less. I think a lot of people, like people on the left, would look at companies like Apple and say, they're on our side of things. This is the future, and no, these aren't good guys. They'll sell out to anything or anybody as long as they get theirs. They can't wait to screw over the next guy. These are not good folks, and they're certainly not good stewards of the culture. They've been terrible. And so all that's been a really this has not been a good thing. Now, all sorts of good stuff can come out of it, and some good stuff has come out of it. It's nice to be able to do this sort of stuff and get your rocks off and say things. And there is some really good content online, fantastic stuff. There is, but it's, as it always inevitably these things are, they're in an incredible minority. I'm not saying, oh, we should all, let's go back to the cave and throw away all the devices. And there are people saying that. I don't think that's the answer. The tools are fine, but if you live on the tools, right? If you lived on M&Ms and jelly beans, that really wouldn't be the best diet for you, right? We've got to do better than that. And for a lot of folks, there is that. So I think it's okay to use the stuff, but I'm less on it. I'll put some stuff up there. I do Instagram and I do a little bit of Facebook, and I'm here. Well, I hadn't been here in a while, but I mean, at least here somewhat. But I think there are some people here doing great stuff. I like seeing, I think it's Jared Henderson who does great stuff here. There's a couple of history podcasts that are great that are also here. So there's good stuff to be found. But and this has always been the case, you have to do some digging to find the good stuff. And most folks never do the digging. So all they check out is not good stuff. So I think there's a need in the main for people. It doesn't mean, again, don't get rid of all the devices. No. But less of it and a more balanced diet of it. And, we need to get our attention back in a long form sense. People need to pick up a book. Or people need to listen to long form music with no distractions and just listen to it. People need to go take a walk without a device necessarily. Just get out. We need to reclaim that space desperately because we've lost it and we're getting dumber and the culture is sinking fast. I've taken up reading. I always read, but I think I'm reading more the last year or two. I'm just flying through things and living in books. Fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. And I don't think it matters that much, but get yourself into a headspace where you're taking in some author's worldview. There is something to be said for, man, a book is a wonderful thing. To get into that headspace where you're concentrating and you're reading lines. I'm not knocking audiobooks because I know people who do audiobooks and they've been tested on that. If you're doing audiobooks, your same part of your mind is being activated and you're taking in the information. And that's fine. For a lot of folks, there's reasons why they, reading on the written page is okay, but that's a tiny minority of folks, pretty small minority of folks. I think for a lot of folks who can do it, if you're able to read the written word and go through that process of having an author speak inside your head and get those, that's a good thing, and the thing we need to do more often. We need to do more reading. We need to do more things that in which we can get deep into our own thoughts, not make it so surface, not make it all about speed. We need to slow it down and slow it down have some time where it's slowed down, and we have a subject meditation too. Any things that will get you that way. So that's been crossing my mind a lot lately, and because I'm watching, the culture is a real, it's really bad right now. It's about as bad as I've ever seen it, on so many levels. So things are not good. And it's honestly, what can you do? Well, what can I do? I think the best thing we can do is do whatever we do with greater, dive deeper into the things that we love. And for me, I need to spend my time doing what I do. Do it harder, do it better, and just do that. And I can't fix the culture. No one person is going to fix this. It's going to, hopefully, the winds of change will come, and we'll get out of this mess that we're in right now. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. I'll try not to suddenly expire. That's definitely on my to-do list, is to remain, functional. But it's an interesting experience for sure, and it's what I did last summer. And now let's move forward and not do that again. And maybe I'll see you soon with some more thoughts about where the culture is going and all that sort of stuff. And I've got some thoughts on things. It's been a while since I've chatted, so I've got things to say. All right, you guys all take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Take care.